see your red door. I want it painted.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited. I have some amazing guests here. Sorry, that was one of my longer intros, but I love me some Cheetah, even if it's a weird version from the DCU. But with me, I have Brian from Comic Breakdown. How are you today?
What is up? Glad to be here.
Awesome. And I also have Rocky from Comic Boom, a wonderful channel. Both wonderful channels. How are you today?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. We put up the Christmas tree of the family yesterday, and today it snowed a lot, so I was shoveling snow, and I just got in, and now I'm relaxing, talking with you guys, sipping my vanilla crown. So life is good.
That's awesome. So I figured we would kind Cheetah was all wrong. I know a lot of people didn't like that version of Cheetah, but they tried, even if they failed a little bit, they still tried. I still, and that's one of the weird, like, hot takes at my channel is that I loved Wonder Woman 84. I thought it was an awesome movie. I like crying 4 times through the whole thing, and I'm like, my Diana. Okay, yeah, little pathetic there. We won't go too pathetic, but I wanted to talk a little bit more in depth about a couple things happening in DC. There's a lot of moving parts, but one right now that just finished is Fear State. And I would say it was relatively underwhelming to me. What do you think, Comic Breakdown? I think you did almost every single, broke down almost every single issue on your channel.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, I do commentary for the comics, and then at the end I do a quick review of it. So yeah, I covered most of Fear State. I didn't have to. I really enjoyed the Scarecrow aspect of Fear State. I think that was my the biggest takeaway. The relationship that had built up over the years between Scarecrow and Batman, and in this last issue, they have a conversation between each other to really just going over the years, and Batman telling him no matter what, at the end of the day, fear isn't going to win. And so for that aspect of it, I really enjoyed it. But I think a lot of people were just hoping that the Fear State was going to wrap up anyway, because no one wanted the Future State to happen. Everyone's been all hands off when it comes to the Future State and wanting DC to start moving into something different. So I think they wrapped it up relatively quickly. I think the biggest takeaway for me was that relationship between those two and what was coming out of the Nightwing series.
Nightwing's been so good. Like, I absolutely love that character anyways. Even some of the weeks where Batman was lacking, always had that Nightwing. That was a little bit better. A Catwoman that was a little bit better. What did you think, Rocky?
I thought Fear State, I've reviewed, I work with another guy by the name of Jace, the Comic Source. We reviewed DC issues every week, and we felt it dragged on a little bit long. I love James Tynion's Batman overall. I actually enjoyed. I guess maybe I'm a little bit of an outlier. I think maybe the fan base of Batman is maybe a little divided on Tynion's run. That's my impression. Mileage varies from reader to reader, but I actually I thoroughly love James Tynion's Batman run overall. But I do think that it floundered at the end. I think Fear State did drag on a little bit long. But I enjoyed the journey. It's sort of like being on an awesome road trip, but you got really drunk and you had a great time, but you have a really bad hangover when it's done. You know, it's like, you know what I mean? Like I wish I didn't have the hangover of Fear State, but that's what I gotta have. So most of what I have to say about Fear State, I'm really big on the journey. I thought some great characters, even from Underbroker to Punchline to America Molly.
Mhm.
All of these are fascinating characters, and even the characters that I didn't like, I dislike them for all the right reasons, because they antagonize me a bit, or they piss me off in all the good ways that I want to read about them again. You know what I mean? It's sort of like loving to hate Darth Vader, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what I enjoyed about it, and that's what James Tynion brought with Fear State. But again, the ending, I thought it was, I mean, to joke a little bit, I don't see Batman. My version of Batman doesn't have a touchy-feely conversation with Scarecrow in the Batmobile at the end of the... No. He's going to knock him out, and he's going to take him to Arkham, and that's going to be the end of the matter, or Arkham Tower, whatever it is now. I don't see Batman having this, you know, my Batman isn't the touchy-feely, I want to understand my villains type, and, you know, that's what the psychologists are for and Arkham's for. So I have, but again, those are nitpicks. I mean, the bottom line is the action was fun. I enjoyed it. It was, dragged on too long, but overall, I was happy enough with it.
Yeah, one villain I would have liked to see really get more light. He was really used as a backdrop villain, was Parasite. You know, Parasite had great potential to be this huge take over the city type monster, and they really brought that to an end very quickly.
Are you talking about? Hugh Vile?
Yes, Hugh Vile.
Hugh Vile.
Hugh Vile. Okay, yeah. No, I agree. Yeah.
I really liked that character. Like, I loved what Mariko Tamaki did on Detective Comics. Definitely more than the main line of Batman. She was bringing that character to life, and it was just like, oh, it's over. Like, I wish we would have seen more of that. I really like that character. Another one I absolutely love is Miracle Molly. He introduced a lot of characters, but that one felt like it had a lot more staying power.
I got a question for you on Miracle Molly, Nerdette, because I watched your reviews and Comic Breakdown. Would be interested to get your point of view on this. I'm really torn with Miracle Molly, because if Miracle Molly is this good person at heart, and I believe that she is, but she goes through this conversion process to become part of the Insanity Collective with Master Wise, and it sort of got rid of all her trauma, or at least that's how I understood it. She appears to end up being what appears to be a good person. She surrenders. She even goes to jail. I mean, she pleads guilty. She's doing all the things by the book. And may I just say, in my other secret identity, I'm a lawyer. I think she had a terrible lawyer. Why she's spending time in prison and everybody else seems to be walking free? I don't know. I mean, that plea bargain sure sucked that she was in, but that's another story. But I don't read comic books for all realism. But I will say this, I'm curious why. I thought, what would have been the harm of Miracle Molly just letting Gotham City be part of the conversion process? I mean, Batman talked her out of it as if it was a bad thing. I mean, if Miracle Molly turned out so good, why not use that same process that Miracle Molly went through for all of Gotham? Would that have been a bad thing? Or did I misunderstand that? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, if you erase the only thing with that is if you erase it, are they really the same person they were before? You've erased their trauma. You've erased most of their memories and everything else. So we're seeing her down to her, like, brass tacks. But if she would have done that to all of Gotham, then, of course, you know, we wouldn't have back to status quo. But more importantly, it would have been mind control, right? I actually think it would have been a really cool twist to have her do it. I think it would have been really neat to kind of explore that.
I'm just saying that Miracle Molly turned out okay. So who's to say what the rest of Gotham wouldn't? But anyways, I'd be curious to know your take, Brian.
So my thoughts on that. It's actually funny you bring that up. On my knuckles, I have it tattooed, amor fati. So amor fati means love of one's fate in Latin. And I adopted that philosophy because I've been through a lot of trauma in my life, tons and tons of trauma. But I believe it's helped build me into the person I am today. So if you're going to take away all of that trauma from everyone, I don't know the person I would be on the other side of that. You know, just because Miracle Molly came out good on the other side, it doesn't mean everybody else is going to come out good. That just means they're going to go out, experience more and new traumas, and we don't know how they're going to react to that after having a lifetime of experience and all of the trauma that they've experienced taken away. So you could have people go literally insane because of the trauma after years of not building up coping mechanisms to deal with that trauma.
Oh, man, that's good. Yeah, I don't even. It sort of reminds me. I think it was in Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country, where Captain Kirk, William Shatner, in his animated style, was saying, "I want my pain. I own my pain." He didn't want to be changed either. It's like, yeah, you're right. You can't take away my pain. It's like, so yeah, I get it. I guess it's just such a typical Gotham sort of central or a Gotham kind of storyline. You know what I mean? What would Gotham City be? What would the citizens of Gotham be without their trauma? I mean, you can't have that.
I would love to see a storyline exploring that avenue and really seeing the effects of that, how it would have on Gotham City. You know, would we see a Gotham City that transforms into the new metropolis and even better? Or, you know, is it going to just continue building on its chaos?
Yeah, no. And that's why I
But if
think,
you think-
and I think, go ahead. Sorry, Nordette.
No, I was just saying, think about like growing up if you you're relatively privileged and you go to high school and then you go to college and then you go into the real world and it's like that shock factor, right? So I think they could really go in, had they decided to, which they didn't, go in and explore that shock factor. But like Brian said, you don't know. Some people would react like Miracle Molly. Some people end up being that good person. There's a lot of people that it would be so foreign to them. They would go, you would need 10 Arkhams, right? Like you would need to house these people.
Yeah. My favorite part of that was when Miracle Molly, I think it was in the Batman, the Omega issue that wrapped it up, was when they're taking Miracle Molly into prison. And one of the things that she gives the guards is she takes out her eye. It's like most people just, take up your wallet and your necklace. No, she takes out her eye and puts it in the, it's like, welcome to Gotham,
Yeah, literally.
Oh man.
I got a super chat from Robert said, he said, problem is Molly wasn't giving people that choice. When she was given that choice, she would have been imposing her will upon them. And I think that's the real danger within it, imposing your will upon others.
Yeah, I think that's the overall reason why they had Batman stop her.
Yeah.
I'm curious what they're going to do with her in jail, though. Like,
are
we going to see more like, you know how we've got that Punchline backup that we follow her in jail and all that? Are we going to follow Miracle Molly also? Like, or is it just going to be one of those things where it goes back to status quo and we may never see some of these Tinian creations again?
I would hate to not see Miracle Molly again. I think she might have a solo series coming up. I'd have to look it up, but I really hope they do make a solo series if they're not having that in the works, because that's a really great character. I think that would definitely sell comics, and it's new, it's exciting. You know, not many people take issue with anything of who she is or what she is. So I think it's a popular character that can definitely go a long way, be more popular than Harley Quinn if you give it the opportunity.
I think they actually. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I think they actually expected Punchline to be the one that hit, and it was Miracle Molly. Yeah. Like, I love Punchline, but as soon as Miracle Molly's Secret Origin come out, I was like, "Yep, she's awesome." Like, she hit harder than Punchline ever did.
You make a good point about Punchline. That Punchline was, I thought, the character that I think has the most potential, and I still maintain this. I think the character with the most potential that James Tynion created is Punchline, but my interpretation of Punchline appears to be very different. I thought they've kind of made Punchline less interesting. I did not enjoy those backups with Punchline. I thought they insulted the character. I view Punchline as someone who is a master at manipulating social media. I think of someone who has her own agency and gravitas and genius at the level of interacting and being able to manipulate the social masses. But they never went that way with Punchline, but they should have. I would have think she would have had her own agency. To me, I think Joker, I thought that Joker liked Punchline because Punchline was needed to help manipulate the masses, which is something that the Joker would want. Punchline brought something to the Joker that even Harley Quinn couldn't. Punchline, and I don't want to put down Harley, but I always saw more of a sexual element, sort of an uncomfortable sexual element between Joker and Harley, where I thought Punchline there was different there. There was something different in a different kind of twisted way, but they never went that way with Punchline. She never. I was disappointed in her, and I just thought that all her power while in jail came directly from the Joker. Her influence and power, she only had agency because she was the Joker's sidekick, and I never got the sense that she really stepped into her own. And maybe that would change. Maybe that'll change moving forward. At a minimum, though, even though I was disappointed with it, I will say that the great thing about Punchline is that other writers can expand on that and make her more interesting than she's become, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I think Punchline always reminded me of like the woman that walks in the room that demanded respect. Like, you know, those type of women that just walk in the room and they are very like, you're like, oh, okay, I don't want to mess up around her. Like, that's what Punchline reminded me of, and it was very different than Harley Quinn. But Harley, I still love Harley, don't get me wrong, but Harley is the one that is manipulated, whereas Punchline is the one that does the manipulation. And those backups, I got through them because I like the character, but they're just like a little teeny section of a story about jail that's not even that great. Like, I was confused why it's been like 6 months and she's still doing this, trying to escape. The biggest issue I had back to Fear State was like a lot of the editor's notes. I actually caught one of the editor's notes that was wrong. It was talking about, it was in the Joker, and he said something about Gordon's wife dying. And they said, check out, I think it was Convergence for this. And I'm like, no, that's No Man's Land. Okay, I'm not going to pick. But, and then it's like, this last Detective Comics said, this takes place in between like Batman 112 and Batman 113. That came out in September. I'm like, what's going on here, guys? Just a little bit of editorial oversight will help just a little.
Yeah, that one. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say my biggest, I think the most problematic thing to come out of Fear State is going to be the new location of Arkham Asylum with this Arkham Tower. I think that's the biggest problematic thing coming out of Fear State. As I said, I enjoyed the ride. I enjoyed the journey of Fear State. I'm not fascinated with the destination. You know, give me a good road trip. I don't care if I get there. I'd rather be driving. You know, keep me on the road. Don't get me to the destination. I'm not really feeling this Arkham Tower, Arkham Asylum, where we seem to be building now a Shadow of the Bat. But Fear State itself, I didn't mind. But sorry, Brian, go ahead.
No, you're good. I agree with all of that. One thing I was going to bring up is Sean Mahoney, Peacekeeper #1. So his character was really like, I enjoyed the artwork. The artwork was absolutely amazing, but his character as a whole just seemed ridiculously just overpowered, but at the same time just ridiculously insane. You know, it just felt like they just overdid it just a little bit with his character.
Yeah, they did. I love the fact that they misspelled even his great grandfather. Mahoney was misspelled on the bridge that they dedicated to the Mahonies, and they misspelled Mahoney. I mean, everything, it was so tropey. Everything that could possibly go wrong for the Mahoney family went wrong. I mean, no wonder this guy is, you know, continuously pissed off at the world. Nothing goes right for that poor bastard.
Not at all.
I wonder, that's another one I wonder if they're going to bring back, because I don't know. He was probably like one of the least favorite things to come out of that, just because it was like, I guessed it from Infinite Frontier 0. Like, I knew who that was going to be initially when it came to Peacekeeper 1. And then it was like, he was super tropey. He was like OP, but didn't know how to use his powers then, even at the same time. Let me get this super chat real quick. Drew from Comics Elite. A mental hospital for the criminally insane in the center of Gotham. What could go wrong? We're so close to 50K. I know. I just checked the Kickstarter this morning, and I'm like, you're gonna have to start coming up with new stretch goals. Jeez, Pete, it's doing so good. Make sure you guys check out Comics Elite. They are awesome. I actually I know you said, Rocky, that you're like the whole idea of the new Arkham Tower is the only thing to come out of this, but I kind of like exploring that. Like I loved what was it? Arkham Living Hell, Dan Slott. Like I like going into Arkham and exploring those. That have you guys been reading Arkham Order of the World?
I've
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
not.
Like
Is it-
I love the psychological aspects, learning about these characters. And I think they're going to do a little bit of,
I think
like a
you're-
little bit about prison reform.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's fitting for the story.
Well, it is. I would just add this, that first of all, I agree with you 100% on the fact that exploring mental illness in the context of Batman's Rogues Gallery can make for very interesting stories. I mean, my favorite that's ever been done was Grant Morrison's classic Arkham Asylum graphic novel, where they explore. I love the psychologist who broke the dichotomy of Two-Face's flipping the coin by expanding Harvey Two-Face's dichotomy into a deck of cards. So instead of flipping a coin, he would have 52 choices instead of 2, and expanding the choices and getting into the mind of the Joker and trying to really get into the weeds of it. It can make for fascinating stories. The problem though, and this is my concern, so the problem though is we're talking about long-term continuity here in terms of what you're setting up for Batman going forward. If we're going to apply real-world mental health principles, and frankly, it's unavoidable, real-world legal principles to the criminally insane. I mean, frankly, do we really want Batman, confronting a criminal in a dark alley and suddenly being touchy-feely with him and saying, instead of hitting him and knocking him out, saying, "I'm sorry," are you bipolar? Do you feel another voice talking to you in your head? I mean, not to get all extreme, but I mean, Batman, I still want Batman to be Batman. I don't need Batman to be Mr. Sensitivity, nice guy, touchy-feely. That's not why I read Batman. I don't think that's why anybody reads Batman. In the pages in Detective Comics Annual, Nightwing gets into an argument with Batman over Arkham Tower, which was fascinating. But at the same time, and Dr. Chase Meridian, great to see her from Batman Forever. Nicole Kidman, the character, she makes her appearance there.
Oh, yeah.
And she might have a role to play. So that's cool. I like that. But I think that Marika Tamaki, with her Shadow of the Bat, I think she's going to be riding a fine line here, because I like the idea of exploring the treatment of the mentally ill. But my concern is, how interesting can you really make that story? So I'm open-minded and I'll eat my words, but I think this has been done before, and dare I say, it's been done really good before, but only in short-term stories. I don't know if I want this new status quo. I don't know if we want. I'm just the jury's still out, but I guess I'm being a little bit pessimistic. But Nerdette, I hope that your optimism, bears fruit. I truly do.
See, here's my thing. When Mariko Tamaki came on, I was concerned, but I liked her Wonder Woman run. And then when she came on, she kind of blew me away. So I think that if anyone can do it, it's gonna be her. But we also have to look at the aspect of Batman during this time is gonna be gone. So we're not gonna have to worry about a touchy-feely Batman. When he comes back, things may change. But
Yeah.
I don't want a touchy-feely Bruce Wayne. That's weird to me. Like that's why I love Nightwing so much, because it brings the heart, into that Bat family. But I think as long as they do it to a point where we see the psychology side of it, we still want our vigilantes, we still want that. Just work within the world you created. You can bring some realism to it, and I'm not against realism or allegories or anything like that. But you got to work within the world that you created. So if you have these vigilantes, they are now, I'm assuming, not outlawed like they were, during Fair State. You have to be able to still let them be vigilantes and let the psychologists treat them, not necessarily let the vigilantes go out on, the streets of Gotham and be the ones treating them. I still think they need to be the same. And I do think we can get there, but I see a lot of what they're going for, and the only thing that I'm a little bit afraid of is, have you guys heard these weird arguments on social media? Like, they come up like every 6 months where Batman could cure all of the mentally ill by giving his money away and basically going and donating all of his money. And then he could, he just beats up on mentally ill people. I hope we're not going in that direction. I don't think we are. But then again, I've been wrong before. What do you think, Brian?
I think that's definitely happening with Nightwing right now. They are definitely pushing him in that direction where he's going to be, the philanthropist that's out there helping people with the money that he got from Alfred and so on and so forth. And I think if anybody were to do it, I think Nightwing is the best way to do that. And we're going to have to see how that plays out. There's tons of ramifications that come with that, from, the city to, villains not being happy with it. So he's going to have a lot of obstacles up against him when he does go and do something like that. And we may find that it ultimately just flops and it's just not something that's beneficial to society. Or it could be something that ends up making Bloodhaven something just absolutely amazing. It's really just going to be up in the air.
And it's
thing
something
with
to keep
that,
in
though,
mind.
is Go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep
I was
interrupting
just gonna
you. I'm so rude.
No, that's okay. I think there's just some lag time in the voice. By the time I get the sound, I apologize for that. But in any event, I was just going to say that, what makes this interesting from a storytelling point of view is that Nightwing is currently in Detective Comics Annual. He's in Gotham arguing with Batman over the advisability of Arkham Tower, and he's on the side of Dr. Chase Meridian about reforming all these mentally ill criminals. But Nightwing's going back. Nightwing's already spent his $1 billion in Bloodhaven. He's not helping Gotham. Bruce Wayne is not broke, but I don't think Bruce Wayne's got the money. Bruce Wayne's leaving Gotham. So they're trying to go to Fox. They're trying to get funding from Fox, from the Fox Foundation, to fund Arkham Tower. So who's going to Fox Arkham Tower? And so it's likely headed for another degree of corruption. So who's going to be the head doctor of Arkham Tower? I have a feeling it's not going to be Dr. Chase Meridian, although that would be the best choice. I think from future solicits, it's going to be another person by the name of Dr. Ware, who, I hate to be tropey, but, if it's going to go down along the same routes of, another corrupt doctor, every single doctor that they hire for Arkham ends up being corrupt. Every single one.
Make it Harley Quinn.
No, like this is where, we can have fun and joke about this, but is there an institution in the DC universe that has a worse record than Arkham Asylum? I don't think there is. It's unbelievable. I laugh at Dr. Chase Meridian's, talking about, they're trying to reclaim the name of Arkham. It's like, let's reform the name of Arkham Asylum, call it Arkham Tower, put it in the middle of Gotham City. Like, are you kidding? You have better luck trying to reclaim the Confederate flag. Give me a break. Good luck. You use the Nazi symbol. Try that vote for say. It's insane. But again, it's comic books. I get it. For corporate reasons, they want to keep using the name Arkham, right? Because DC's not going to give up the name Arkham, so we know we're stuck with Arkham. But it is kind of comical, and but again, it's the video games with the video game in the middle. I think a lot of this is the influence of the video games and everything else. So we're sitting here as reviewers trying to play mental gymnastics, justifying Arkham in the middle of Gotham City. It's an exercise in futility, but it is fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's funny because I've seen this going in the comments a little bit. The whole issue. So remember at the end of Joker War when Selina gave Lucius, I think it was Lucius or was Luke, Bruce's money. Why at this point does anybody have any idea why Lucius never gave the money back to Bruce?
Well, I look at this another way. I go, what kind of girlfriend would give away all your money? I mean,
Right? That's
Selena, I
very
mean, come
true.
on. I thought she loved Bruce. I mean, I think that was just reprehensible. But no, I don't want to sidestep your question. I do think that I do think it's a legitimate question to ask. You know, why is Fox keeping all the money? I mean, it's why doesn't he give it back? It's a legitimate question, and you know, obviously Bruce Wayne. Uh, I, I I just take it that Bruce Wayne is so smart. He's the second smartest person in the DC universe. If you go by pre-rebirth or
Right.
continuity or whatever, next to Lex Luthor, he's more than capable of making the money back. But that's a good question. And you know, the way that they're portraying Fox, the way that John Ridley has been portraying the Fox family, that's a fairly dysfunctional family. There's a lot of drama there, and I think that makes for good stories. That's not a criticism; it's a constructive criticism. But yeah, like Fox, he's kind of a hard ass boss. I mean, I think he's a pretty hard ass boss. I think he's even harder on his employees than Bruce Wayne was. But I speculate.
Yeah, they really
I
did
think
change up his character quite a bit so far.
yeah.
Lucius, just the Fox family in general. I think they've done that to try to get Jace out there, you know, trying to get this new Batman that's coming in and so on and so forth. And so, you know, they're trying to find this dysfunction between the family to really, like you said, have that drama, have that story built up. So, you know, maybe readers will be interested in finding out what's going on. Why is the Jace family acting like this? Why is it so different of a Fox family than we've seen, you know, throughout all of these years? And, you know, I personally haven't been a fan of it. I'm actually still, I covered the last couple issues of I Am Batman. You know, it hasn't been a bad storyline. It's just not that enjoyable of a Batman story either.
I think the way they're portraying the Fox family is completely foreign to what I've known for years. And that's my biggest issue. Like Lucius always to me was he wasn't Alfred calm, but he still wasn't this terrible. Like I don't know, he kind of has become a son of a bitch. Like it's nothing against Ridley, maybe a little bit. I'm not a huge John Ridley fan when it comes to his writing, but I like how they're putting Jace out in the open. I do like that. But they are making Lucius seem like a petty thief when it comes to Bruce's money because there's no reason why somebody that worked together for years and years and years wouldn't return it. Here, safekeeping, here you go. The way they're making the Fox family in general kind of feels like, yeah, it's good for comics, it's drama, it's all that. But like even to go to the weird point where like I think I literally laughed out loud when the name of the army was the Moral Authority. I'm like, what? What? Well, okay, all right, that's where we're going with this. And it's not terrible. It's not terrible writing. It's just I don't know if it's Ridley. He can't separate like his politics from his writing, and a lot of people are like that. I get it, but it just feels so foreign to what we've known for years from that family. Let me get this super chat real quick. Robert, thank you so much. We have giving it to Lucius was the contingency plan. Then Lucius say it was to prevent the government connects. Then Ridley made it sinister. And yeah, it was always a contingency plan. And then he was just like, ha, just kidding. It's mine now, guys. Sorry. Like, what the? I don't get it.
I think it's going to be explained at some point. Lucius Fox was always the moral center of Bruce Wayne from a business perspective. Alfred was the moral center from the family perspective. And so that interplay worked very well. And you even saw that play out in the movies, of course, with Morgan Freeman. And so it worked very well. And I think that's still the case. And if I'm being generous to John Ridley and perhaps defending him, I would say that there's always a difference between the business side of someone and the personal side. I personally, I can accept that Lucius Fox had a moral center for business and was very good for helping handle Wayne Industries for Bruce Wayne while he was doing his activities as Batman. But meanwhile, Lucius Fox, I think that the personal price that Lucius Fox paid for being such a good CEO for Wayne Industries is that his family suffered. I think his relationship with his wife suffered and his children suffered. And I think we're seeing that play out. And I think that's what John Ridley is trying to show, that this is a guy that he was really good at helping out Bruce Wayne and running a corporation. But as you know, you're working 16-hour days if you're running a corporation. We all know it sure as hell wasn't Bruce Wayne. It wasn't Bruce Wayne that kept Batman rich. It was Lucius Fox.
Right.
Because we know that from the real world too. I mean, all these, we know this, all the real world billionaires, they don't get that way from sitting on their ass. But that's the way I look at it. And I think at some point there's probably a future storyline that's going to reconcile. At some point we're going to have an up and coming Bruce Wayne go against maybe Lucius Fox, and that might make for an interesting story.
Hold that thought, because we'll talk about Jace going to New York. But Robert said Ridley retconned it. Oh, I hated this. Wasn't this in a backup story? Ridley retconned it that Lucius had been waiting to undermine Batman ever since Robin joined, after that he chose to wait to cut him at the knees. Yes, that was in a backup story, if I remember correctly. And it was like when Dick was little and he had been waiting since that point to undermine Bruce Wayne. Like, no, that doesn't seem like the Lucius I've known for years. And that's what I hate when new writers come on, is when you got to write for the character. You got to know the character just as well as the fans do. Because if we can put our hard-earned money and time into them, so can you, as your, job. You don't have to give us what we want. You don't have to, I'm not an entitled fan. I'm not saying that. But you have to at least write for that character. And it felt like he was writing for some very sinister, dark version of Lucius that I never knew existed. So what do you guys think about Jace going to New York? Do you think that actually helps the situation?
I think it's going to help with fans a lot, because since the beginning, everyone has been pretty upset that there's a new Batman coming in, and there's only one Batman, and if someone takes over the mantle, it definitely should be someone in the Bat family, so on and so forth, whatever the argument may be. But at the end of the day, I think, like I said, I think it's a great avenue to take Jace, put him in a different scenario, put him in a different city, and see if he can really flourish as a character, or if he's something that's just gonna, sparkle for a little bit and then burn out.
I agree. I agree with Brian. Jace needs his own. He needs his own agency. He needs his own rogues gallery. He needs to come into his own as Batman. I mean, to be quite blunt, if I'm being, again, he's the Black Batman. I mean, that's what he is.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. Let's just call it what it is. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that that's just the reality. And that's fine. That's great, because the idea of more than one Batman is, well, it's already established with Batman Incorporated. We can have more than one Batman. That's fine. That's great. We got every country has their own Batman with Batman Incorporated. So having one in New York City, and as well as Gotham or wherever Bruce Wayne's going to end up, that's all well and good. But he needs to have his own rogues gallery. He deserves to have his own agency, his own way of doing things. Right now, Jace really is he's just the other guy in Gotham who is dressed up like Batman, and they tried to deal with the different skin color by giving him a bottom part of his face mask and everything, and the storyline, and I agree with you, Brian, the I Am Batman storyline didn't really work for me. It didn't, with the whole Seer thing and the way the side storyline, it didn't mesh well with Fear State. It didn't really mesh. Again, I'm prepared to cut John Ridley some slack on that, because I think editorially overall, I think Gotham has been kind of messy narratively with all the different titles. And so I think this is a good fresh start. Put him in New York City. I mean, that's right at the heart. I mean, let's face it, there's a bias. Most writers are American and they know New York City. So, put him in New York City and let us get some great stories let him get his own Robin, let him get his own sidekicks, let him get his own Batmobile, let him do something different. He's got his own funding. It's just going to be so much better. And that way we can get away, because we know how these things go. It will hopefully minimize the sort of comparisons to Bruce Wayne, and minimize, dare I say, the politics and on those dumb topics that are sidelines to these types of things. So, yeah.
Thank you, Bianca. You rock too. I love how when I bring it up, it just says character thing you wreck. Thank you, Bianca. I appreciate it. Yeah, you know what? I actually think it's really smart. What we're seeing right now is Batman 2.0, but if you take him away, you put him in somewhere unfamiliar. I actually like how they named it Empire State of Mind too. Like they're really gonna focus in on that New York aspect, and that's why I loved Ram V's Catwoman run so much, because he wasn't messing around with like but he wasn't like, oh, the Penguin's her rogue this time. No, he created Father Valley. He brought this new character in, a rogue specifically made for Catwoman, and even now I think her name's White Witch. Is that the new one?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And that's exactly what Jace needs. Jace needs something central to him, and I don't know if they should, because I know why they created him, for cynical reasons. Let's be real here. Doesn't mean his creation and his storyline's bad, but it's corporate, right? So I don't know if they should give him give him his own identity. I don't know that would even help. I feel like getting him out of Gotham is the thing that's gonna help the most.
Yeah, it's the only thing that can work with the character. You can't give him a new identity. People are just gonna be like, okay, it's just more of the same. You're just still in Gotham City. You're just wearing a different costume now. So if you take him out of Gotham City, you put him in New York City, you're gonna have a whole avenue, like Comic Boom was saying. You have a whole avenue of new directions that you can take this character and go any way you want with it, and really see how it holds buoyancy on its own.
I got a super chat here from Robert. Explain. Yeah, that's a good. Queen Ivy in Fear State. As much as I love, thank you, Robert, by the way. As much as I love Poison Ivy, she's one of my top 3 characters. Oh, ever. Her part in this was very lackluster by the end. It was like, yes, Ram V is pumping this up. We're going to go get part of Ivy, and then we're going to find out the other side of Ivy. And it was like, okay, touch hands. We are friends again. Like, we are whole now. Like, what did I just witness? She had her roots in the entire foundation. And instead of, like, being the old... And I like anti-hero Ivy, but, like, they could have... this is another direction they could have taken it. They could have literally, started collapsing the outside of, using her roots. Like, it was just like, okay, it's okay. Harley's here. We touched hands, and now we're going to cuddle, guys. Like, it was so lackluster to me.
So, I was actually thinking about that, because we see Poison Ivy after she, comes back together, and she essentially gets the entire city high. And then, a couple pages. Yeah, she drugs them all and makes them all calm down, and everyone's good. And then a couple pages later, that's when we have Miracle Molly saying, okay, I'm going to erase everyone's trauma. And then that's where they decided to draw the line. And I was like, wait a second. That. Like, first you get everybody high, you calm them down, but you don't want to erase their trauma. Like, that was a little bit conflicting in my and how I saw it from that aspect.
Yeah. My opinion on Queen Ivy is I thought it's very interesting, because they're almost going in a different direction with Ivy, because the whole idea of Queen Ivy, I mean, she's essentially she was like the Duke Ex Machina ending. She could have easily, you got to wonder, even if Miracle Molly had defied Bruce Batman and went ahead and you flicked the switch, could not have Queen Ivy have undid it all anyway? Wasn't that the whole point? So with Queen Ivy undid it all with her pheromones from the plants and her roots all over Gotham. So the existence of Queen Ivy almost took away from the gravitas of that feeling that Miracle Molly is Miracle Molly. Is she or isn't she going to flip that switch and use the Master Wise and remove all the trauma? Well, can't Queen Ivy just bring the trauma back? So there was that. But I will give some credit to Tinian here, and maybe it's not just Tinian, but Ram V, because Poison Ivy also appeared in Swamp Thing, and I like the idea of the name Poison Ivy. There's the poison, and then there's the ivy. And I love that because it's two states of mind, because it
Mhm.
makes you wonder, because I did not always think of Poison as of Pamela Isley. To be honest with you, I never actually, even though she's been in Arkham Asylum, I've never actually thought of her as being insane. I've never thought of her as being mentally
No.
ill. I always thought of her as being an extreme environmentalist
Yes.
with who has
Yep.
parent, and suddenly now they've sort of they've sort of added the mental illness aspect of it. Well, wait a minute. Is she an Avatar of the Green, or is she an offshoot or a quirky offshoot of the Avatar of the Green? Is she like Swamp Thing? Is she or isn't she? Exactly what is her power set? There's a lot of question marks about Poison Ivy that I think are still there, that make her, I think, potentially the most presently, arguably one of the most fascinating members of Batman's rogues gallery. And she's almost akin, she's a cross between an anti-hero for vis-a-vis Batman and Swamp Thing. And that's what I find fascinating about her. And then when you throw in the fact that she has this relationship with Harley Quinn, I actually think it makes Harley Quinn more interesting too. So I kind of like where Queen Ivy is at the moment.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, hold that thought. I want to talk more about Ivy, but let me get these super chats real quick. Kenneth Dowling, thank you so much. Hello. Hope you guys are doing well. Tristan, I saw Drew's demo for the Born on Blood. I heard your voice as the character. You sound awesome. Thank you so much, Kenneth. I was so nervous doing that. And I'm so glad it turned out good. I wanted it to be good. I'm so glad people are liking it. I put a lot of work into it, so I'm glad it shows. And then Bianca, my Bianca, make a new Batman costume, including color scheme besides red and black from Beyond and yellow and black from Signal. 3, 2, 1, go. You gotta have pink and black. Come on now. We need it. We need a female pink and black.
Why not go ridiculous with it?
Hell yeah, it's comics. Might as well. But as far as Ivy goes, the thing is I really like what I've been kind of talking about. I did a video when it comes to climate change in comics, because we saw that on the solicitations from Tom Taylor that, like, there's no planet B. Sure there is. Yeah, there is. But anyways, she is one, that extreme environmental terrorist, right? She is the one that should be using, even diving into the radical side, the poison side. If they're going to use any character for that, she would be the one to use. I mean, you could use Swamp Thing a little bit, but he's usually a little bit more good, I guess is the best term. But the way that they're using her is underutilized. But her with Harley, I love, because Harley is still at that point in her getting over Joker, moving on with her life, where she likes attention, she's sweet, she's a little naive, and Ivy is so jaded by man, period, that they balance each other out really well. And I think that relationship really works. But as of right now, it feels like that's another one of those characters that they could work with, and they're not utilizing it at all. Like, it was just that hand thing still floors me. I don't know what I was expecting. I get that's, probably the best they could do, but it still was just like all this build up. And now we're going to hold hand. Okay. All right. Because comics, that's the best answer for it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories right now that they're just trying to cram a lot of stories into these comic books, and I think that's become a big problem with not being able to tell full good stories. Like Justice League Dark, for example, has been some of the best stuff that's come out of DC Comics this year, and it's getting just a small few pages in the back of Justice League, and it's not doing any justice. While meanwhile, the Justice League line itself is absolutely horrible in comparison to the Justice League Dark.
And that's Ram V again, another person that is unfortunately underutilized at DC. I know he's got a couple titles, but now he's only going to be on Swamp Thing as far as I know. Like, he's so talented. And the Bendis, I started buying those for the backups.
Yeah.
Like, that's how good those were. I haven't got to the annual yet this week. I don't know how that ends up. But as far as those they need to really. I think they're collecting. I had him on the channel, and I did think he said that they're collecting them in a graphic novel format, so you'll have them all. But as far as Ron V, and I love him. I think he's doing. Have you guys checked out his Venom by chance yet?
Yes, I have.
So good.
Not yet.
Like, I love it.
Yeah, I'm actually disappointed that he's not picking it up for another couple issues. They're focusing on Dylan. I think was it Al Ewing is heading it up for the next couple issues, which it's been so. But I really want to find out what's going on with Venom, and because he's consciousness is time traveling. There's a lot going on with him.
Yeah, my comment on my Ram V's Justice League Dark is generally very good. The Justice League Dark annual, the 2021 annual that just came out, I think that it was I thought it dragged on a little bit long, but I love the idea of the guy walking backwards and Dr. E. So it had some really great ideas, and to the extent that I can sit here and talk about shortcomings of the art and what have you, and the pacing of the story. The fact of the matter is that it's fascinating. It's actually an interesting story if you've been following Justice League Dark, and that's what I love about it. I can't say the same thing about Bendis's Justice League, and it's very frustrating as a reader to, and I know that I have this old expression that I try to do my reviews by, and it's a sculptor's expression, and the expression is never cut with a knife what you can cut with a spoon. In other words, if there's a nice way I can say something bad about a comic, and there's a more diplomatic way I can express my discontent about a comic. And I'm not going to lie to you, sometimes I can be a dick. And sometimes but I always try to cushion the blow when I'm reviewing a Bendis comic, because I know it's generally not going to be very good. And time and time again, I'm disappointed with Justice League, with the main Justice League title by Bendis, with his checkmate. It's just like a meandering, frankly, a mess. But Justice League Dark has been very good, and it's very disappointing when I hear that DC editorial, so Ram V now, he's not going to be continuing with Justice League Dark, and to hear that Bendis is doing Justice League versus Legion of Superheroes, and then he's going to be taking the reins and going to be doing Justice League Dark. This is extremely disappointing to me, because I know that he hasn't earned his cred yet. You know what I mean? Like, I'm prepared to cut, for example, Marika Tamaki, for example, I might have some issues with the way she did this or that, but she's earning her cred. She's slowly earning some cred, and I can see she's trying, and I'm happy for her. She's earning her cred. Bendis isn't. He's creating his own universe. He's ignoring continuity. He's flipping the bird to readers who complain about his dialogue, which is atrocious. I mean, he actually had the phrase "word vomit" in the last issue of Justice League. One of the characters actually said "word vomit." I mean, he's flipping the bird to readers that are complaining about his dialogue, as opposed to, I don't know, improve your dialogue. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have an editor, listen to advice. Anyways, I had to get that little rant out of my system.
No, you're totally fine. Let me get these super chats. Did you see Sean Murphy's tease on his Instagram? I actually saw it on, what was it? On Bleeding Cool. So it looks like we are getting a White Knight Beyond from the looks of it. Have you guys seen that?
No, I haven't. I'm curious. That sounds interesting.
Anything from Sean Gordon Murphy, I'm like, take my money. Like, just go ahead and take it. Like, it's okay. Rocky, Comic Boom, I agree with you on Jace Fox moving to New York City. This gives him a chance to be his own Batman. He has his own identity, his own villains. This is what they need to do. Miles Morales, I'm out. I'm not reading any current things from Miles. I can't even speak to it.
Yeah, I haven't been following much of the Spider-Man lines. I've been actually staying away from those. I know there's some great stuff going on in some of the Spider-Man lines. It's just I got so much on my plate already. Spider-Man's got too much going on.
I agree, and just as a general comment about, now granted, I read every DC comic that comes out every week, because I review most of them, and I don't always want to be very blunt. But at the same time, I feel sorry. Like I have an opportunity. I have an opportunity to read a lot of Marvel. I find generally, I find it almost impenetrable at times. I find it overwhelming trying to get into Marvel because I've been such a DC guy for so long. And I feel sorry for, and I know how Marvel people feel when they comment about DC being impenetrable too, because it depends on what side of you're on. And we all love comics and we're all part of both sides. You know, it's not about picking sides or nothing, because I love different characters. I don't care who publishes them, but it can be overwhelming at times, man. Like, I want to get into Miles. I want to get into Peter Parker. And then, I mean, I guess Peter Parker's not Spider-Man. Now Ben Reilly is. Now what's Miles doing? And they're all part of the universe. And then, and what's going on with the X-Men? And what's going to this? And then we got a crisis coming with DC. And it's like, you know, I gotta tell you, for a new reader coming up on board, trying to read the big two right now, and somebody asks, you know, like the three of us here are fairly knowledgeable on comic books in general. I mean, what do you say to somebody who's just walking into comic books and they want to read they want to get started? I mean, we got to think about it when we give our answer.
Because like if you take the X-Men line, for example, like you can't just tell them to pick up this one issue and begin here. Like you have to pick up these 12 different lines across many things, and then they all interconnect. So you have to make sure that you have to get every issue of it. Like, because I've been covering everything that's going on with the X-Men Krakoa, and it has been the majority of the stuff that I cover from Marvel, just because it's so expansive.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah,
I only even ever picked up Venom because I like Ram V so much. Like I read everything from DC every single week, except for I did drop. Oh, I think it was just Teen Titans Academy. I almost dropped The Detective. I'm glad I didn't, but there was a couple. I'll follow creator on occasion, and I picked up Venom, and I was like, oh my god, this guy has a kid now. Like, how long's it been since I picked up anything from Venom? I was so confused. But it's very hard to get into comics, and it's like, where do you start? Well, maybe year one, and then let's talk. Like, it's very hard to, and that's why I think, and I've said it 100 times on my channel, but I do think they should put something on the cover. You know, generally we get like 6-issue arts or the end of Fear State or something. When a new arc is starting, I think they should put something on the covers to alert readers that want to jump on. That people maybe that don't follow every single book like we do. Like, it would generally help. I like Black Cat's one I love. I'm like, where do I start? How do I start? And when should I start? Like, when's a good time? I got one more here. Robert, Bendis giving Lois a brother. I could rant all day.
Oh my god. Oh my god. You want a 30-second rant on that? I'll give you one right now.
Go for it.
Well, let me say, Leonardo Lane, first of all, okay, now this is a rant, so, you know, people can absolutely disagree with me, but this is a rant, so I take full ownership of my mistakes and my ranting and everything else. But the double L on the Lane applies to women that Superman has slept with. You don't put it to Lois Lane's brother. I'm sorry, it's not. Leonardo Lane is stupid. No, it's Lori Lemaris. It was Lois Lane. It was Lana Lang. You don't make Lois's brother Leonardo. That's stupid. That's a Bendis thing. It's a dumb idea. Editorial, shame on you. That was asinine. It was a stupid thing to do. Secondly, if you're going to have a major revelation of a major character that's never been done before, could you at least have the common decency to have somebody in editorial tell Bendis that when Lois Lane discovers she has a brother, that she actually expresses surprise? She didn't seem surprised. Not at all. Now, somebody should say to artist Alex Maleev, and it occurred in an issue of Checkmate that nobody's reading. I know. Why do I know nobody's reading it? I don't know. They have this thing called that. They give out the sales data occasionally, and there's an estimate. Apparently, no one's reading it. I mean, it's funny. Like, if you're going to do this, I mean, when you think about it, we're talking about a major character, and nobody's talking about Lois Lane having a brother. Even Lois Lane doesn't seem like it's a big deal. It's the snowman's ticket. It's the snowman's ticket. What the hell is a snowman? Nobody cares. Mark Shaw? Who's Mark Shaw? Nobody knows who Mark Shaw. Oh, that was Leviathan. Does it matter? No. Why? He's killed off. He was we all said he was an insignificant character when he came out, and guess what? He's an insignificant character now. I mean, this is and Leonardo Lane. You want to talk about guys? Let's talk about a Gary Sue for a moment. Everyone talks about Mary Sue's. Forget about Mary's. Let's talk about Gary Sue's. Leonardo Lane, Nightwing level intellect, Batman level intellect, Nightwing level speed, skill, good looking, looks exactly like their son. I mean, everything about it drives me crazy. I hate everything about it. It drives me crazy. I'm not saying the character can't become interesting, but when Lois Lane's brother becomes interesting, it's only going to be because a future writer's going to come along and retcon everything and Jeff Johns the shit out of it. Pardon my language. Rant over. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it definitely made me go back and question if I missed something, because it randomly you have a brother of Lois Lane popping. I'm like, when did this happen? Like, I'm going on Google, like, where'd this guy come from? Lois Lane just like, oh yeah, that's my brother. Like that guy that I didn't tell you about ever. He's just my brother. And so it really just threw the whole thing. And then, you know, Checkmate, they didn't promote in the slightest bit. So when that released, you know,
no marketing.
I picked it up, but there was, I think Green Arrow talked about Checkmate for like a half a second in the Justice League line. And then he's just like, oh yeah, that's my other team that I'm on. It's like, what the hell is going on here? Like, I want it to be good, but at the same time, like, there's no build up to this. You're just literally throwing it out of nowhere. And then Checkmate randomly comes out, and no one's like you said, no one's reading that, so no one understands no one knows what's going on in that.
There are people in the chat right now actually saying Lois has a brother.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Proof
give me a
right
break.
there.
Yeah, it came out of absolutely nowhere, thin air.
Wasn't it almost the same week as the Nightwing has a sister issue, or very close?
I think it was.
It was close.
Really close.
It was very close. Yeah.
That one was at least done well, I would say, comparatively.
Yeah, no. There's a right way to do it, and there's a not so right way to do it. And again, I mean, I get the strong sense here that Bendis's contract with DC must have been so extravagantly high, and he obviously had a better lawyer than DC had, because they have to be keeping on for a reason here. Because, and again, I don't mean, again, I'm sounding like a hypocrite now, because I really don't mean, I've been trying to, I'm making an intentional effort not to bash writers. I'm trying to do it less and less. I really am. But geez, it's hard. It's hard with Bendis, because these stories are just they're just not good. I mean, they're demonstrably, you can point to evidence within the story that these are demonstrably terrible stories. And there's nothing's earned. The characters don't earn their place. Yeah. They're Duke Ek Machina, the nonsense, the Gary Sue-ness of it. It just drives me crazy. And oh my God. Anyways, sorry.
No, it's so hard to be positive sometimes. It's like, oh, what can I say that's really, I can say what I really mean. Last thing, Kenneth Dowling, thank you. You don't have to say last thing. You are totally fine. I'd rather have Jace have a different name. There's only one Batman, and that's Bruce Wayne. That's what it is. Have a good one, guys. Thank you, Kenneth. Kenneth will be on our community stream. I believe it is the 19th with Raymond and a couple other people I'm excited about. Thank you so much for the super chat. And Robert is ranting about it too. Lois and Lucy were raised to be the sons her father never had. So why would he do that if he knew he had a son? And they made it clear he knew. No sense whatsoever.
Yeah, because he became a super spy.
Yeah, no, but that's so true. One of the central backgrounds of Lois Lane, which DC has shit all over Lois Lane from the New 52 onward. She's never gotten a decent storyline, but the best Lois Lane stories, and they have been out there, have focused on the fact that she was her, Sam Lane wanted a son but never had one.
Yeah.
And he took it out on his daughters, and he treated and now suddenly for there to be a son, it changes completely the dynamic, and it actually changes the history of what was the primary motivating factors of Lois Lane growing up. It in my view, it changes it. And again, people, this is where non-comic book readers will tell them, "Comic Boom, relax. It's just a comic book." To which I'll say, screw you. I love comics. you know, I want this to be real. I want this to be a formative experience for people reading it. To me, this was Lois Lane not having a brother, Sam Lane never having a son was a formative aspect of Lois Lane and Lucy Lane's life. And I mean, the person in the chat, was that whoever it was, I mean, they hit the nail right on the head. This does change everything. And it's, in my view, it doesn't work. And why? Why did Lois Lane need a brother? Not only that, if I was going to, like, I hate politics in comics. I don't like discussing it because it's nonsense. It goes into different directions. But let's just be blunt here. Why would you want to give Lois Lane a brother? I mean, why did she need a brother anyway? Did we need another white guy? I mean, if I'm gonna go there, did we, you know, all this talk about let's get, you know, I mean, I don't believe this, but I'm just saying if you're gonna go there, no, we need another white male. Well, yeah, let's make. So we're not only we have enough guys that look like Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne, all the male members of the Bat family, they all look alike. Superman looks like all males of the Bat family. John Kent looks like his dad. Now we got Leonard Lane, looks exact. So now we have another black-haired white male. Why did we need this character? What is this character bringing to the franchise, the Superman mythology, even the Lois Lane history, other than taking away from it? Like, who was the editorial person that approved this? Anyways, I'm done, you know, whatever.
No, I totally get it. I don't know that Bendis has that much editorial oversight, or I would say, we could blame editors, but you know, I think he kind of gets to do what he wants when he wants because he's Bendis, and that's really unfortunate. We're seeing the you know, mess that he makes. Bianca, thank you so much. I think it depends on the character. When I started on She-Hulk, I saw she didn't have much, and since they were all one-shot volumes in trade paperback, it's easier to follow. I started on Chris Soule's run, Dan Slott's run, another good one you should check out. Or Child Soul. Sorry, I said Chris Soule. Yeah, it's sometimes hard. It's sometimes when jumping into comics, you just kind of got to take that dive, right? Like you just got to start somewhere. You got to decide you want to learn about a character. There's characters I haven't looked into until recently. Like I remember stuff from Mr. Bones, but now I'm going back now that he's, you know, teased on Stargirl to look at his old stuff. I was doing a video and I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea. I forgot that Mr. Bones was a black guy. Like these things that you forget and you just kind of got to jump in. And I think that is, Damon Rose. Oh yeah, Leo Lane, aka Damon Rose. I was confused for a second, but yeah, it's a hard thing. And I did see. I think Leo said it earlier. That's why a lot of people go to manga because you just pick up volume 1, and it's easy. And DC needs to streamline it in some way to actually do that. How do I get Crystal from? No, I'm sorry, Bianca. I meant Charles. It's my dyslexia. I apologize. It's definitely Oh, so I did see earlier. Now that we're on, while we're on Bendis, let's talk about it. What are you guys thinking of the I am what is it? I am or Son of Kal-El. I was gonna say I am not Starfire. Where the hell did that come from? Son of Kal-El.
So for me, I think the Son of Kal-El started out very strong. Issue number 1 was absolutely amazing. You know, I know a lot of people aren't happy of the fact that, you know, Superman's headed off to War World and he's going to fight against Mongol and so on and so forth. But for me, I really like that they're taking Superman out of his element, putting him out there in the universe, and really giving Jonathan the opportunity to see if he can be the next Superman. You know, and we saw in Future State how it doesn't really work out well for him, and he has failure after failure. He ends essentially, you know, does the most villainous thing that he could ever do by encapsulating the city just like Brainiac would. So that's like the worst case scenario of how the story could go. And so as we're slowly building up and we're having this President Bendix or whatever his name is, you know, like I said, issue number 1 was absolutely amazing. Issue number 2 was good. And then you started to get a little further in and then the story starts to kind of fall apart. And then they randomly throw in that he's bisexual. They throw in the kiss. And then it just become, it's just very out of place. Like I said on my channel when I reviewed this, like I have no issues with Jonathan being bisexual or anything like that, but it was really just thrown at you the character of what's his name, he goes by the Truth, Jay. So his character has no development whatsoever. He looks very promising. He looks like someone that could be the next Lois Lane if you gave him the opportunity to actually grow. Instead, there's like throwing him in here like, oh nope, you two are gonna kiss, you're gonna be bisexual together, and then he's gonna fly off and go do superhero things. Like, to me, it was just very forced. It was too quickly done. If this was something that you wanted to do with him, you really should have built up this story, let this really get somewhere, and then build that relationship with Jay further on down the line. Because at the end of the day, I feel like Jay is going to end up being the bad guy. It's really what it's building up to look like, is Jay is going to be some kind of villain in this.
What do you think about it, Rocky?
Well, I'm going to try to keep this short. I really am. But I will say this. First, I want to say that I like what Tom Taylor's doing, that he wants to give John Kent some his own agency to make some mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, I will say straight up that I think it's a questionable choice of John Kent to interfere in the sovereignty of another nation, like the island nation of Gomorrah. I think Lois Lane sitting idly back, I think it was a terrible decision as a reporter and a mother to just tell him, yeah, go ahead, do what you want with Henry Bendis. Yeah, go ahead and invade another country and, attack him in his own country. He leads the country. That was a dumb thing for John Kent to do, but it was a good story idea. Why? Because John Kent needs to make mistakes.
Yep.
And for everybody and reviewer who bitches about John Kent, well, his dad would never do that. Well, no shit, Sherlock. He's not his dad. Wake up. The present generation, I mean, look, I'm 52 years old. I mean, I don't expect a 20-something to agree with me. Yeah, we live in a very proactive time. I expect a young Superman. Now, I still view him as Superboy. I'm sorry, but whatever. I'll call him Superman just to be nice. But whatever. He's Superman. I expect him to make mistakes. I actually like that he did that. I like that he's going to make mistakes. He's going to screw you. My dad was wrong. And my dad's respecting me. I'm gonna violate the sovereignty of the nation. I'm gonna go to the island nation of Gomorrah. I'm gonna confront Henry Bendix. I'm gonna interfere with his domestic policies on immigration or his foreign relations. I don't care. This is what I'm doing. What's right. Well, there's gonna be consequences from that.
Yep.
And I like to think Tom Taylor's gonna deal with that. And I actually like that idea.
Mm-hmm.
And because I like that idea, I do get annoyed at this massive distraction with him kissing some pink-haired BTS reject, or I mean, what's this? Like, why the kiss? I don't care. But here, I have fun with it. Remember the Twilight thing with the team? That you could be the team wolf, team vampire. I personally, if I'm gonna go with the bisexual thing, whatever, I don't care. But I'm just personally upset that when he kissed Saturn Girl, there was no media blitz when he kissed Saturn Girl. I don't know about you guys. I'm just thinking I'm going to choose a blonde over a pink-haired freak any day of the week. Who in their right mind would choose Jay Nakamura over Saturn Girl? Are you kidding me? I mean, and I can say this legitimately. If I was with John Kent, I would sit John Kent down and say, look, John, you can go both ways now. Okay, I want you to explain to me why you chose that pink-haired thing over that gorgeous blonde over there. I mean, this doesn't make sense to me. But I can say this without offending anybody because he goes both ways. I'm just wondering if he can go both ways. I have every right to suggest to him and push him toward the blonde. That's what I'm doing. I like the blonde. Go to Saturn Girl. She's real hot. And we can get away from this. What's that?
I just laughed.
Well, no, I'm just saying, I think DC should have had fun with this. They should have done that. They should have gone Team Saturn Girl versus Team Jay Nakamura. How much do you want to bet Jay would have lost?
Yeah.
He would have
100
lost that one.
times
They
over.
could have had fun with it. Have fun with the buys. If you're gonna, that way you're not pandering. Okay, you're honoring the bisexuality. If you're going to go there and make this a major story point, to me, the whole point of this story should be about John Kent making mistakes.
Yeah.
Making major decisions, creating an enemy in another country, going into that other country, invading the sovereignty of nation. If you're going to incorporate real world politics, you can't go halfway, because there's lots of reviewers that can't get over the fact that he's entering. This is political. This is political. It actually isn't. If I had a dime, or if I had a nickel for every time Kal-El went and saved a kid from a burning fire in another country, you think, did Superman go through customs when he flew to France to save that kid from the fire? No. He just violated the sovereignty of nations. He broke the law. If you want to draw this ridiculous, this is comic books. You have to suspend your belief. If you want to start incorporating, he violated the sovereignty of nations. Kal-El wouldn't do it. Kal-El does it all the time. What do you think Kal-El's doing in Warworld right now?
Yep.
You think he's not violating the sovereignty of nations in Warworld? Of course he is.
The entire United Planets are questioning that.
Exactly. And so I just draw this. Now, I'm all like, this is where where we have to be careful where we incorporate too much of the real world reality and politics into our comic book stories, because otherwise we're going to ruin them. Do we really care about United Planets politics in a war world story? Of course not.
No.
Do we really care about, we got to be very, very careful when if we start incorporating this stuff or imposing too much of the real world into it. That's my concern about this whole, when we start to do this, because it's a slippery slope, and then it just fosters negativity and these awful, we get sidestepped. How many times, Nerdette, you experience this more than anyone, and Comic Breakdown, I know you do too, that, how many times do good stories get missed because people are bitching about a minor plot point? Nightwing's a great story. How many people bitched about Nightwing creating a foundation? They thought it was a political story because he gave his $1 billion to a foundation. That's political?
Yeah.
So that
Charity.
I watched some reviews. They spent 45 minutes bitching about Nightwing creating a foundation, and it's like, I guess you missed the entire story, because that was on page 4. It just boggles my mind how. But this is the slippery slope. This is the stuff. This is the state of comics right now, where really good stories can be missed because you're focusing on a tree and not the forest, and it's sad.
And the thing is when it comes to, I've been very clear on my channel. I don't care if John Kent is bi. I like Jay as a character because I think he's the villain in the story. Like, he feels like he's going to be a bad, from everything in the book he does. Now, from everything Tom Taylor says in interviews and stuff, he doesn't seem like he's making him that way. But what they're missing when they're talking about this, first kiss, is how good the first 2 issues of Warworld Saga blew me away. Like, that Trail of Tears walk, thinking about Clark doing that,
was so brutal.
Phenomenal. It's
so fucking intense.
Awesome. Like, I never thought DC would allow him to do something, and it's dark and it's gritty, but not like Zack Snyder where he's like, I want to be an edgy boy gritty. Yes. It's dark because the story demands it. And we're focusing on a kiss. Yep. Like, really, guys, we're missing the point here.
Exactly.
There is so many good stories. And I pointed this out, I believe it was an Icon and Rocket. A lot of people are like, oh, they're all against white people and this, da da da. And you've got Icon over here going, don't call them hillbillies or whatever, rednecks, I think he said, because that's degrading to white people. Like, you're missing so much good, because every single comic, not everyone, like, neither one of you guys are at all, but a good majority are focusing on the negativity, calling an agenda, this, agenda that we're seeing in comics, because he went over there without knowing the rest of the story. Like, did I think Clark would do that? No, but I thought it was kind of cool. He was able to track his heartbeat to tell that he was lying, and he's going to regret that. He's going to regret that. But we haven't seen that regret yet because we're only on issue 5. There's so many good stories that I try to talk about at my channel. Like, every single week on my morning show, I do a top 5 of the week because I want to highlight the good instead of just sitting here and talking about, well, this person doesn't like that he's bi. I don't care. Not everything is political. Not every single thing. Like, who you love isn't political. Saving somebody from a dictator isn't political. It is simply a good story, and they're missing out on all of that by focusing on the negativity. And it's something I try to outweigh, but it's so hard. Negativity sells so well.
I should add too that I find it. I always beware of the language of the way people describe a title. I find it very interesting that when a particular subset of reviewers and will refer to a storyline and they'll ascribe an agenda to a writer, which is such an interesting term, isn't it? Agenda, because here's the reality: when a writer writes a story, they have an intention. Their intention is to tell a good story. They have an intention, but suddenly, if certain people don't like the story, they don't call it an intention, they call it an agenda.
Right.
Well, so because if they call it an agenda, that means, I just laugh. How much power do they think these writers actually have? Like they have some nefarious agenda. I don't know about you, but I feel like I've been totally brainwashed. I'm totally brainwashed by DC Comics, man. I used to be totally against bisexuality. Now I'm bisexual. I used to be heterosexual. Now I'm bisexual. Do the insult that they pay to these readers? It's kindergartenish. It's school garden. I can only, like, honestly, I listen for 5 minutes and then I just shut the review off. It's like, an agenda?
Yeah.
Really? You think there's an agenda? Now, don't get me wrong. I have every reason to believe. Do I think that there is an agenda at DC Comics to be more inclusive? Yes. Do I think that they are trying to have more Black people as Amazons on Paradise Island? Yes, I do. You want to call that an agenda? I call it an intention, and it's about goddamn time. That's what I call it. I don't take offense to it. And why is the story? I'm sorry, is the story going to bother you because the color of the skin of the character is a different color than what you're normally associated with? I don't have patience for this nonsense, and it's total nonsense. And when you engage with these people, honestly, like there's only so much that I can do to, I just sit back and I say, okay, whatever. But I judge the story. And you look at what DC's doing now with Black Manta, the increasing the mythology of Aquaman by incorporating slave colonies from the past and giving Black Manta more gravitas by giving him an Atlantean origin. You can look at this from a point of view that, oh, well, they're just doing that because they want to have more Black characters. Or maybe they just want to be more inclusive and actually increase. First of all, it's a great story. It's a great history. They're making the mythology more interesting. It's being more inclusive. There's actually a very good sound story behind it. I might take issues with the way the story is told, but the intention of the story, I respect. I don't call it an agenda. Well, I guess you can call it an agenda, but I hate using that word agenda because suddenly that it's so derogatory and it's so insulting to the writer to suggest, as if these writers, they work their ass off for decades to finally break in, and they finally tell the story they get to tell, often editorially mandated to begin with. And then you're going to accuse them of having an agenda? Come on. Like my patience really wears thin with some people. And granted, I can be a real dick on reviews from time to time, but at least I possess enough self-awareness to know that there's a little bit more going on in the world and my own self-awareness. It's just crazy.
Yeah. The biggest thing I've seen around is the go woke, go broke. That whole mantra getting yelled around. It's absolutely ridiculous because at the end of the day, like, these are really great stories. And if you look past the things that you may not see as a representation of yourself or whatever the case may be, I don't like that. I'm not a fan of that. If you can look past that and see to the story, you can see amazing stories. Like, Nerdette brought it, Icon and Rockets. We have the whole Milestone universe has been revived, and it's I've been covering every single issue. I absolutely love it. And really, I'm not Black, so I know, but I also know there are definitely racial diversities that people have grown up with. I have best friends that are half Black, half Mexican, and they've told me about the the hardships that they've dealt with growing up. And so with these comics, that's exactly, we're seeing a mirror of their, you know, their art is expressing their lifestyle. And, you know, the comic may not be for you. You may not understand it. It may not be your cup of tea, but at the end of the day, no one's forcing you to read it. No one's forcing you to buy it. And there are plenty of other comics you can buy. This is just hitting a different demographic of people and getting them interested in comics and bringing them into the fold and showing them you can tell a story about your life through these means, through these mediums. And this is, you know, branching out all over the place. And we're seeing that in so many different characters. And I think it's just scaring a lot of people because people don't like change. You know, people are terrified of change. And so what we're seeing is a whole new era of comic books where we're telling so many different stories from so many, like Yara Flor, arguably some of the best stuff that I have read when it comes to, I mean, I know Comic Boom, you love Wonder Woman. But Yara Flor, I think the story has just been absolutely amazing. And I really do relate more with her as Wonder Woman than I do Diana Prince.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, I agree. I can say a lot for about Yara Flor. But I just want to add this about Icon and Rocket. I absolutely love the sort of like the alternate history of Icon and Rocket. It very clearly is rewriting it in a way that is very, I mean, that puts slavery in its place and the and the American. I mean, it sort of rewrites history and how just the origin of Icon. It's just it's awesome. I love it, and yet some people will take to that and they'll take offense to it because of the politically sensitive time in which we live. And I'm going to say this real quick, and because it has to be said. Everybody who says that, you know, politics shouldn't be in comic books, and of course I'm going to say politics have always been part of comic books, but I will admit that politics are maybe a little bit more in politics than in the past, but there's a reason for that. It's because comic books have always been a microcosm of the larger cultural landscape. They always have. Whatever is in the larger cultural landscape will find reflection in comic books. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Because if it wasn't, you wouldn't be reading the comics and they would be worse than whatever you perceive they are now. That's the reality. I want some of the larger cultural landscape in my comic books. Now, if you're really, imagine being so uncomfortable with a comic book, but you're going to repeatedly buy it anyway. And don't get me wrong, I'm a hypocrite too, because I continue to buy Bendis comics, even though I don't like Bendis. So look, I know I'm pointing the finger here and I got 3 pointing back at me. I'll live in my hypocrisy. So be it. But I'm just saying that at least possess enough self-awareness to know that, look, if whatever you voted for in the last American election, if you're American or however you feel about politics, I mean, bear in mind that sometimes a comic book story is just a comic book story. When Icon and Rocket, it really is, it's a story that maybe isn't written for you. And now what's funny is I love it. I think it's fantastic. To me, it's like Quentin Tarantino. When he rewrote the history of World War II, Quentin Tarantino did that movie Inglourious Bastards. It ended with Jews killing Hitler. Well, that never happened. Oh
absolutely phenomenal, though.
Oh my God, that was a terrible movie. That wasn't even based on reality. Oh, we can't have that. Like, I mean, you know, again, and so a lot of these comic books, when you take an obvious deviation from history and you get people complaining that it's not a reflection of history, you got to wonder not what the agenda of the writer is. I'm wondering about what the sanity of the reader is who's making that comment. But hey, you know, whatever. I drink, so what do I know? And I'm a hypocrite.
Let me get this super chat. My fellow Earthisans, I vote we all ban Kryptonians from our solar system. Superman will no longer violate international sovereignty. That's exactly what we need to do. You got it. Thank you, Derek.
You take the lead on that one.
Yeah.
You know, something I wanted to add, you brought up about get woke, go broke. That whole mantra is completely fake. Like, all of the properties that are get woke, going broke are making millions and millions, if not sometimes reaching billions of dollars. Not talking necessarily about each comic book, but look at the MCU. even you don't want to, but look at the DCU too. Like, these properties aren't going broke. They're doing well. I just posted some numbers from Comic-Con the other day, and it's like, well, those are ship numbers. Like, you know, when we, like, if somebody orders 10 DVDs, it's because they're going to sell 10 DVDs. You don't call them shipped numbers on movies. Like, we're not going to have this argument. I'm not going to obviously change anyone's mind. But at least at the end of the day, maybe I can show them a good book. Maybe I can show them something that might interest them. Because the majority of books at DC are not, I don't even know what woke means. I'm not going to lie. Like, I've gotten 10 different definitions. They're good. That's what they are. They're not. I think it's a good point you brought up, Rocky, about comics being a little bit more political than before, but that's because we live in a time where politics has kind of become a lot of people's entertainment. Like, people like and are more interested, and that's a good thing. I like people that are more in tune to what is going on in the world around them. It is a good thing to be educated, but that's also reflect in what you read. And what we're reading right now necessarily isn't. What drives me crazy is when people are like, well, it's a gay character, so it's political. I don't know where this started, where, you know, being gay or being black was political, but it doesn't mean it's woke. It means it is a comic book. Give it a chance. If you don't like it, don't pick up issue 2. That is where we're at. But it's an agenda. It just blows my mind that you're not looking at the good. Instead, you're focusing on the one teeny aspect you deem bad. And why does that offend you? Like, I got so irritated the one day when I was looking up something for Son of Kal-El. I think I came across, I think it was the quartering, I want to say. And I finally put in the comment section, I was like, dude, they can't legally force you to suck a dick. It's okay. We will survive. Like, we're gonna make it.
That's so true. No, it's true.
It's just so weird to me.
No, they gotta, you know, there's that old expression, I think it was from the Hangover movie, you know, check yourself before you wreck yourself. I mean, give it a rest already. I mean, take a break, sit back and relax. I mean, look, and here's the irony of all this. I got friends who are knee deep in the Comicscape community, and they create some work that I love. But I can actually legitimately read their comics and I can review their comics. And if I criticize their comics, it's based on story structure, verisimilitude. Is the motivation of the characters established by the narrative? It's got enough. I don't need to bring politics into my judgment of their creative work. You never have to, but if there is politics there, if you establish that the politics of your world are what they are,
yes,
then why would I use politics from my world that I live in now to judge the politics that you've created in your world? Since isn't that would be ridiculous, because you're the author. You wrote something different than our world. So how asininely stupid would I be to compare my politics? Oh, I feel he's forcing it on me. Well, last time I checked, nobody forced me to buy the comic book. And if you don't want to, and you know what, the market always determines this stuff. And I'm a big comic book speculator. And let me tell you a little pattern in comic book speculation. A real quick comment. 2016, 2017, when Marvel went through all that hype and they tried all that, you know, diversity doesn't sell and that big controversy and everything else, you know, and I can make an argument for every single one of those comic books that didn't sell are at the top of the comic book speculation market right now. And I bought them all. And why? I say this with ego. I'm not going to dispense with modesty. I've been collecting for 43 years. I know this hobby. When people are fickle, they're predictable as hell. If something is controversial, buy it. Buy it. Buy the third printing. Yeah. The reason why I'm buying the third printing of Superman Son of Kal-El #5, when John and Jay Nakamura, that pink-haired freak, are kissing, the reason why I'm buying it is not because I'm hanging it behind me. You don't see it hanging behind me. I'm not hanging it up. it's because it's worth $50 right now, and I just made some money off somebody who is dumb enough to pay that much for it.
Yep.
That's what I do. This is the world in which we live. And so that's what it is. Now, if you want to talk about what I think of the story, I don't even think the story is that bad. But that's a separate conversation. But I mean, this, people get tied up in this. But I gotta say, I think conversations like we're having now, healthy discussions, as long as we're self-aware of what's going on. I mean, let's at least acknowledge that there's a degree of nonsense to these topics. I mean, we're grown adults and we're talking about comic books, and I will battle against Bill Mayer, who doesn't think this is a worthy conversation any day of the week. I think comic books are literature. I think they're reflective of our larger cultural landscape. I think they say quite a bit about us as a culture, and the fact that we can have these types of conversations, this is a good thing. This is a very good thing, and bring on the nasty.
Yep. I actually, you know what, Rocky, I wanted to ask you specifically, of course, you too, Brian, but I know you're a big Wonder Woman fan. Did you pick up Wonder Woman Historia?
Oh, I did. I'm going to be doing a big breakdown on it. Yes, I did. And I watched your review, and I listened to the, in fact, you and I were both in the chat on when Kelly Sue DeConnick did her interview with John Cetris on Word Balloon, and I was very impressed that how she responded to one of my questions. I was so impressed how she answered one of my, and I'm very impressed with Wonder Woman Historia. I'm extremely opinionated. If I can be a jerk in many ways, and I've been a jerk multiple ways on my opinion of Wonder Woman because I'm very opinionated on her. But what I love about Kelly Sue DeConnick is that I'm going to make a prediction that Wonder Woman has never had her all-star Superman. She's never had her all-star Superman moment. She's never had a Batman Year One. She's never had a Dark Knight Returns. She's never had the equivalent of the icon. I mean, seriously, has Wonder Woman ever had a comic book moment that you could say to anybody, pick up this is Wonder Woman? She hasn't. She really, truly hasn't. You could say maybe the first 24 issues of George Perez's Wonder Woman, but no. And this Wonder Woman Historia has potential to be a game changer. And maybe I'm wrong about that. And I don't agree with, if I'm going to sit here, let me say this. I love her interpretation. I think Kelly Sue DeConnick has she's gotten a very bad rap. The criticisms against Historia from these, and again, because I got my opinions, I'm certainly not going to point out particular reviews, but some of the reviews are it's so obvious that number one, they never read it. They never read Historia. Two, that if they did, their comments have everything to do with attacking Kelly Sue DeConnick, not actually reading the actual first issue. If you read it, I think it's awesome. I think it brings agency to women, and in a good way. Her story, I think, was awesome. I thought the opening issue was amazing. And why? Because here's my bias. I have always had a resentment against Wonder Woman's Greek gods. I've never been a Greek god fan. My criticism of Wonder Woman is that she doesn't stand up to the gods. Because she's always beholden to the gods. She supplicates herself too much. I think she's on her knees too much, giving mercy to her enemies. But all of Wonder Woman's villains are broken in some way, and she has to reform them. And she needs a more villainous villain, and blah, blah, blah. I don't care about any of that anymore. Kelly Sue DeConnick with Historia. I love the fact that Hera is just as much of an asshole as Zeus is. Zeus is a jerk. Zeus is a guy that he creates men, and women are an afterthought. They satisfy men, and men do this, and women are usually the victims. And Hera just wants to bring balance. She wants to level the playing field a bit. Hera has her own ego. Hera's ego is just as much as great as Zeus's is, and all the other goddesses have just as much ego as the male gods have. And they say, look, we're looking down here on Earth, and we see this isn't a level playing field here. And by the way, let's incorporate real world politics into this. You can get all the experts on this. Women have got agency now in the 21st century, yes, but they never had it in the ancient world. Go back before the 20th century. No, they had nothing. It's a patriarchy. Of course it is. Hey, Again, I say with ego, I got a history degree, I got a political science degree, I got a law degree. You want to, go ahead. I'll debate you. Just remember, you asked for it. And look, the reality is women have not, they've been shit on for a long time. And in the ancient world, 3, 4, 5,000 years ago, Hera recognized this and she got a little upset. Zeus, how many times has Zeus screwed around on Hera? And how many times is he treated her like shit? So from an origin standpoint, this isn't even political. What I love about what Kelly Sue DeConnick brought to Historia is that this is Hera, along with the other female goddesses, making an obvious observation that women, the modern day human equivalent of who we are, they're getting shit on by the male gods who are equal to us in power, yet we see no equal reflection of that in what we've created, in what King Zeus demands. And that's horse shit. And so Hera's working behind the scenes to say, okay, I got a plan. And that's what I love about it. I view Historia as the Amazons, the creation of the Amazons is the inevitable result of King Zeus's arrogance and misogyny. And that's what I love about it. This has nothing to do with politics. This has to do with leveling the playing field, balancing the scales. That's what this is about. And that's what I love about it. And that's what brings power and gravitas to the Amazons. And Hippolyta there being rewarded at the end by being she was human. I love the idea of Hippolyta being human, but being, and that wonderful phrase by Antiope saying to Hippolyta, saying that I know what this, she wasn't judging Hippolyta. She said, I know what this world has done to you. She didn't say it was a male or female thing. It bothers me that so many people, there's a number of reviewers that read that and thought that King Zeus, that the goddesses approached Zeus and asked Zeus to kill all the men. They never asked Zeus to kill all the men. It's amazing how many reviewers think that. They never read the comic. Hera never asked Zeus to kill all the men. She never asked that. If you just read between the lines of what they were asking, they couldn't even get to the end because Zeus was dismissive of their argument. But anyways, I love it. It's fantastic. It's only been approved for 3 volumes. She's got a 9 volumes plan. The only way she's going to get to the 9 volumes is if people support Historia. I want people to support it. I think it has the potential to be the greatest Wonder Woman story ever told. And sorry, I'll stop talking now, but I would love to know both your guys' opinion on it because I love it.
I actually haven't read it yet, so I'm gonna have to go out and your little rant has made me want to go and check it out. I've been trying to keep up with all. When did it come out? Did it come out a couple weeks ago?
Last week.
This week.
Last week? Okay.
Yeah, well, sorry, this week. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I must have missed it in the releases.
I'll send you a link. I got a preview copy. I can just send it to you.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll
let me get this super chat, and I'll tell you what. I mean, I went over a little bit. Even the books I disagree with politically, I find enjoyment by laughing at them. Also, OG diverse characters are better than swapped ones, my opinion. And I think mostly the swapping comes from live action anyway. I mean, maybe like in, what was that mini they just did? I can't remember. On Earth 3, they did one where they swapped one, but most of it comes from the live action. But as far as Wonder Woman Historia, you said it better than I could have said it. I reviewed it and couldn't say it that well. This book, I'm like at the point where I'm gonna buy 2 copies each, just hoping that she gets the 9, just because it's beautiful. For one, we knew it was gonna be beautiful. That Jimenez art, amazing. I feel bad for the artist, kind of. They're gonna have to live up to that, but that's gonna be that's a tall order. But when I reviewed it, what I specifically got a lot of comments were, but men suffered too. It's like, okay, humanity has suffered, but as a woman looking at this, you don't go through the everyday little misogynies of men. You don't go through this. This is, as Kelly Sue DeConnick said in that word balloon thing, this was for everybody, but it was written for females. She looked at it and she knew her demographic, and she hit the nail on the head. It was everything freeing for somebody that loves Wonder Woman, somebody loves the history, like the designs. I've seen a lot of people saying, well, Aphrodite is fat now, so they don't like stunning designs, beautiful, absolutely perfection on the art, and the writing is the best way. Wonder Woman's always been a feminist. If you're going to complain about that, you don't know one. Let's be real. But everything that she said in those books calls to a woman and says, look, this is how you should be and not how you are treated. And I think that looking at the history of it and how they're going to go into with Hippolyta, with that baby, I won't say anything because Brian hasn't read it, but the idea of that remorse, that ability to realize what she is being made to do by man is going to be so cool to see her journey. And I was saying, I don't even know, Aniope? I was saying it wrong for years until I heard her say it.
Yeah, I think I've been saying it wrong too, even the way I've been mispronouncing it for a long time, and I probably am still mispronouncing it. But
it is, you said, it is going to be the all-star Wonder Woman. That's what it's going to be. And I really hope she gets those 9 issues. I want to see the full story.
Well, it should be noted that she did note that Wonder Woman is likely not going to appear in the comic. So right. I got to be mindful of, I should clarify what I say. It's actually going to end. See, Carly C. DeConnick said something very interesting. She said that the Wonder Woman story as we know it begins with a man washing up on the shores of Paradise Island. But her story of Historia is going to end with a man washing up on Paradise Island, because the story of the Amazons isn't about men per se. It's about them obtaining their own kind of agency and their own type of world, in a world where, in the ancient world, we got to remember, I think that Kelly Sue DeConnick, she has to be careful, because while there might be a story that she might say is written for women, I enjoy this as, even reading it as a man, I can certainly appreciate. I mean, imagine being Hera. I mean, Hera has been a character who has exercised. The Greek gods are terrible. I mean, these are not good gods. I mean, Hera is just as flawed as Zeus is. But that is Kelly Sue DeConnick's point. She's made that point time and time again. That one of the reasons why she deviates from Charles Marston, the creator of Wonder Woman, is that women are not perfect. Women aren't this. They're not all sensitive and touchy-feely, and they're just as capable of being flawed and being violent as men are. But, there are differences between the genders, but at the same time, they're capable of their own agency, and they're capable of making their own mistakes. And that's what the Amazons do. And that's where the drama in the story is going to unfold. And that's what Zeus fails to understand. Zeus doesn't even view them as being capable of the same emotions as men, or the same type of decision making as men. He belittles their concerns. They can't even get to the point where they formally make a request. I encourage people, especially those that have already reviewed it, who I would argue actually haven't read the comic, that to actually read it, read that altercation, read that request between Hera and Zeus. She never actually says she wants to kill all men. There's a lot of assumptions made, but it was clear that Zeus cut the discussion off before the request could even be made. And one can understand how pissed off Hera is. And she has to work behind the scenes because she knows of Zeus's profound arrogance and presumptions, and frankly, obviously male-centeredness of the gods. It's clear how Zeus, anybody who knows anything about Greek mythology and Zeus, if it walks, Zeus has probably had sex with it.
Yep.
I mean, that's the reality about Zeus. Let's be blunt here. This is not a guy who has a particularly high opinion. He's not going to choose a woman over a guy on any metric anyway. And I'm saying this, Jesus, I'm a redneck. I live in Alberta, Canada. Okay, Alberta, Canada is the equivalent of Texas. Okay, so look, believe me, I've been conservative most of my life. So I'm not a guy who's necessarily. I'm not joining some any feminist group anytime soon. But I'm just saying, like, I have enough self-awareness to recognize that obviously Zeus is kind of a jerk. Okay, so. I mean, this is a good story. And I like the fact that Hera's kind of being a bitch. She's saying, enough of this crap. I want to create some Amazons here. I want to level the playing field. I think this is a good idea. And then when you throw in Phil Jimenez's art, oh my God.
So pretty.
How can you not want to read this comic? I think you're insane not to. I mean, leave your politics aside. Just enjoy the story for what it is. I don't understand some people with this comic. I really don't.
I totally get it. Let me get this super chat. Thank you, Robert. Ironically, Morrison, a guy, fully embraced Marston. Oh, in Earth 1.
Yeah.
That was the idea of actually fulfilling what William Moulton Marston, however you say his name, William Moulton Marston, there we go, wanted for Diana. The idea of her fully embracing that. It wasn't necessarily like it wouldn't be great in continuity, but the idea of that being fully embraced in Earth 1, I thought was awesome. Like, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, Morrison went full. He went full matriarchy with his Earth 1 Wonder Woman. And it's a very interesting take. To his credit, he was very upfront about his approach. So anyone who read it knew upfront what you were getting with Morrison's Wonder Woman. And he incorporated everything from the bondage to the sexuality to the crazy approach to patriarchy. It takes place the Earth Volume 3 of that series takes place. It goes back and forth from a future where the matriarchy has prevailed and where there's peace on Earth and everything is great. And it's all matriarchy. It's all look, we have a few examples in history. I mean, I think that we can, I'm not dismissive of the reality that I think that a full boron matriarchy, I think that us men could probably learn a little bit from how women themselves, and I say that, and I would never my wife doesn't watch these videos anyway, so I can say this without having it come back to haunt me. But I mean, occasionally I will admit that women do have something constructive to add to a conversation. I'm being an ass. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm just saying, like, the reality is that I think a matriarchal government and matriarchal societies have a lot that we could learn from. And the fact that the fact that Morrison embraced that with his Earth 1 Wonder Woman, I think is a testament to. I encourage everyone to read it. His 3-volume Earth 1 Wonder Woman set, I think is really, really good. I reviewed all three comics. I thought it was fantastic. He went full bore into all of it. It was great. I love how he portrayed Dr. Psycho as being sort of like a self-help guru that was into, like, utilizing NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, to manipulate women and all this stuff. I mean, he went full bore into all this stuff. It was a lot of fun. And it goes to show you why Wonder Woman has been, in my view, one of the most difficult characters for writers to make. It's one of the reasons why Wonder Woman is one of the worst written characters in the DC universe, because every writer that writes her deals with the same tropes. They're the peaceful warrior. They make her supplicate herself to her enemies. They make all her villains broken, and they make Wonder Woman be peaceful, merciful, and then kick ass, and then turn around and be forgiving again. And they lose out on, I think, the larger aspects and the more controversial aspects of who she is. And anyways, I like where Kelly Sue DeConnick is going at this, because she's given full reign. She doesn't have to pull any punches, and I love it. This is what the character needs.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. And you know what? Earth 1 was where they introduced the idea of trans Amazons, and nobody cared until it came out Nubia and the Amazons. Like,
who cares?
Okay, apparently people are mad. Okay, all right. Well, I'm gonna wrap up. Thank you guys so much. Comic Breakdown. Do you have anything? Okay, yeah, we know you have stuff coming up. Tell us about what's going on big at your channel this week.
Actually, real quick, I did want to answer one of these comments. Someone asked if
Oh,
I
I'm
liked
sorry.
the. No, you're good. Someone asked if I like the John Ridley run of Black Panther going on right now, Austin Crafton. Yes, 100%. I am enjoying that. I know there's a lot of people having some controversy over Black Panther having sleeper agents throughout the entire world. But I think that really plays well into, you know, them opening up into Wakanda to the world, and not really being sure what to expect, you know. And these are in his younger days, or at least the idea is that these are, you know, when he placed these sleeper agents, it was in his younger days. So, you know, these agents have been there for quite some time. They've been growing, they've been living, and it's just been something there as a just in case, you know, in case the Avengers, something ever happens and they go against Wakanda, or the world decides they want to go against Wakanda, they want to try to come get their resources, whatever the case may be. And so I think, you know, because, you know, Black Panther more or less was a dictator. Now he's handed the Wakanda leadership over to the people, and it's, you know, really more of a council of people now, and he's more of just a figurehead. So I think for the concept of it, it has really a lot of strong bones. It has a lot of ways it can go in the different directions that they can take this story. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how it is. So when it comes to coming up in the future, we're going to be, you know, covering all the comics that are coming out next week. They got, what's the big one that's coming out? It's the Dark Knights of Steel. That one's super popular right now. And, you know, we just found out that Bruce is the half brother to Clark. So that's going to be a huge reveal moving forward, and find out what's going on in that storyline.
Definitely. What about you, Reki? I know you said you have your Wonder Woman Historia video. Is that coming out this week, or when? What do you got going on your channel?
It'll probably be coming out this week. We mostly on my channel. I don't have a lot of time to do a lot of videos. I do weekly. I work with Jace at the Comic Source. He's got a Comic Source podcast. Every week we review every DC comic book that comes out. There's a few that we miss, but for the most part, we review most DC comics. And I'll probably be putting out my full Historia review this week as well. And beyond that, yeah, you can follow me at Comic Boom ! And yeah, and I just want to say, I did want to say, Nerdette, that I do enjoy your channel, and I just want to give you a compliment that I truly believe that that you. I know that you have struggled from time to time with you put up with a lot of horse shit, shall I say, from various people. You've paid you're not afraid to tell your point of view, and I know you've taken some slack for it, but you've stayed the course, and I think it's all the better for it. Your channel's all the better for it, and you're one of the more YouTube channels that I do respect. And you know, I do enjoy your channel, and all the power to you. And I just want to thank you for having me on your show, because I do enjoy it, and I do enjoy your program and Comic Breakdown. I actually, full confession to you, Brian, I do watch your show. You actually come up on my list. I've watched your reviews more than once.
Nice.
It never occurred to me that I wasn't subscribed to you until I went to your channel. I didn't know I wasn't subscribed to you, but you always come up on my recommends, and I'm always checking out your videos. I wasn't subscribed to you so I rectified that. I am subscribed, so I apologize to you for that. So I definitely recommend people absolutely subscribe to your channel, because it's always great to listen to your reviews, because you do a very good job.
Yeah, definitely people need to subscribe to yours as well, because you have a girth of knowledge when it comes to comic books. You are just an encyclopedia of knowledge, 10 times the knowledge that I could ever have. You know, hopefully in some good time, I'll have that kind of knowledge. But as it stands, like when I don't know something and I need to look it up, you know, I'm going to your pages. I'm going to Kraken Krakoa, stuff like that to get that in knowledge that I don't have yet.
I love it. So much positivity. It's so nice. I didn't forget your super chat. I promise. In fantasy, in my opinion, Wonder Woman was the best written in the Justice League animated show. Yeah, I definitely think so. But yes, make sure you guys check out their channels. They are in the description of the video. Absolutely worth your time. Trust me, you will enjoy it. But thank you guys so much. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.